The night everything began did not feel dramatic at first. It felt quiet, almost ordinary. Like any other long evening at the office, when the city outside kept moving and Emily Carter stayed behind, telling herself she would leave after one more. Emily was 42 and tired in a way sleep never fixed. She worked in a tall glass building in downtown Chicago, where success looked clean and polished from the outside, but felt heavy on the inside. People respected her. They listened when she spoke. She had earned that place through years of effort. Missed dinners and constant pressure at home. Her life was calm and dull. Her husband, Daniel, was a good man. He never raised his voice. He paid the bills on time. He asked how her day was. But the questions felt routine, and the answers felt empty. They shared a house, not a world. Their marriage had slowly turned into habit. And neither of them knew how to say it out loud. Ryan Miller joined the company in early spring. He was 28, new to corporate life and eager to prove himself. He dressed neatly, spoke clearly, and paid attention in a way Emily noticed right away. He became her assistant after a quick interview that felt surprisingly easy. Ryan was calm, sharp, and respectful. He did not interrupt. He did not pretend. To know things, he didn't single quotes. He made Emily's days smoother. He organized her schedule, filtered unnecessary calls, and anticipated problems before they reached her desk. It felt like breathing easier without realizing. You had been holding your breath. Emily told herself she was simply grateful. They worked long hours. Deadlines did not care about time or weekends. Late evenings became common. And Ryan always stayed until Emily left. He never complained. He never checked his phone too much. He was simply there at first. Their conversations stayed professional. Meetings, reports, strategy, but small things slipped in. Ryan asked about her favorite coffee. He remembered. He noticed when she skipped lunch and quietly placed a sandwich on her desk without comment. Emily noticed these things more than she should have. She began to dress with more care on workdays, choosing blouses she hadn't worn in years. She started arriving earlier, leaving later. She told herself it was ambition, nothing more. One evening, the elevator stopped between floors. The lights flickered for a moment. Emily felt a strange rush of nerves standing beside Ryan in that small space. They laughed lightly when the elevator started again, but something stayed with her long after she reached her Florida home that night. Daniel talked about work. Emily nodded, distracted. She felt restless, like something unfinished waited for her somewhere else. The distance between her and Ryan grew smaller without either of them naming it. He learned when not to speak. He learned her moods. When meetings went badly, he stayed quiet. When she needed to vent, he listened without fixing things. Emily found herself telling him stories she hadn't shared with anyone in years. Not about her marriage, not directly, but about the feeling of being invisible even when surrounded by people. Ryan never crossed a line. That made it harder. One Friday evening, after a difficult presentation and a sharp argument with Daniel on the phone earlier that day, Emily stayed late again. The office was almost empty. The lights were dim. Rain pressed against the windows, blurring the city into soft streaks of gray. Ryan stood near her desk holding a folder. "You should go home," he said gently. "You've had a long week." Emily looked at him and laughed quietly. "Home," she repeated, as if the word had lost its meaning. She sat down heavily and rubbed her face with both hands. The room felt too quiet, too honest. "I don't know. When things became like this," she said without looking up, "I did everything right. I worked hard. I stayed loyal. And now I feel empty." Ryan didn't answer right away. He stayed where he was, giving her space. "You don't sound empty," he said. "You sound tired." That simple sentence broke something open in her. Emily looked up at him. For a moment, she forgot where she was. She saw someone who saw her. Not her title, not her achievements, just her. From that night on, the tension, between them became impossible to ignore. They were careful, too careful. That made every glance feel louder, every pause heavier. Emily noticed the way Ryan's voice softened when he said her name. Ryan noticed the way Emily avoided his eyes, and then searched for them again. Neither of them spoke about it. Weeks passed. Summer arrived. The city grew warm and bright, and Emily felt restless inside her own life. At home, Daniel sensed the distance but didn't know how to reach her. Their conversations became shorter, their silences longer. At work, Emily and Ryan moved like two people walking along the edge of a cliff, aware of the drop but drawn to it. One afternoon, Ryan handed her a document and their fingers touched. It was brief, accidental, but Emily felt it all the way through her chest. She pulled her hand back too quickly. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. Emily shook her head. "It's fine." But it WASN single quotes. She started dreaming about him. Not about anything specific, just about being close, about not feeling alone. She woke up feeling guilty and unsettled. Emily tried to create distance. She delegated tasks. She avoided late nights. But deadlines returned, and so did the hours. Ryan remained professional, calm, and careful. That only made it worse. One night the building was nearly empty again. A storm rolled in, heavy and loud. The office felt cut off from the rest of the world. Emily stood by the window, watching the rain. She felt a tightness in her chest. She could no longer ignore Ryan, she said quietly. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" He looked at her, surprised by the question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I think most people do. They just don't say it." She turned toward him. The distance between them felt charged. "This can't keep going like this," she said. Her voice shook. Ryan nodded slowly. "I know." For a moment, Emily thought he would step back. Instead, he stayed where he was. "If you want me to leave," he said carefully, "I will." Emily opened her mouth to say yes. She didn't. The room felt smaller. The sound of rain grew louder. Emily felt her heart pounding, not with excitement, but with fear and need tangled together. "Lock the door," she whispered. Ryan hesitated, just for a second. Then he turned and did as she asked. The click of the lock echoed through the quiet office. Emily stood still, realizing that whatever came next would change everything. She thought of Daniel, of her home, of the life she had built and the cracks running through it. Ryan turned back to her, waiting, giving her one last chance to stop. She didn't move away, and in that moment Emily crossed the line she had spent years pretending did not exist, stepping into a choice she would never be able to undo. The storm outside grew heavier, drumming against the glass walls of the office. Emily stood frozen by her desk, the sound of rain matching the racing of her heart. She could feel Ryan's presence close behind her, solid and careful, like a quiet promise. The air between them was thick, heavy with things unspoken, feelings they both knew were dangerous but impossible to ignore. Emily swallowed hard, knowing that once the next step was taken, there would be no turning back. She had told herself to be professional, to stay in control, to resist temptation. But standing there, with the city blurred by rain and the quiet hum of the office machinery around them, all her defenses felt useless. Ryan waited for a signal, a word, anything that would show her willingness. His eyes didn't pressure her, but they held patience and a kind of intensity that made her pulse thunder. Emily's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the buttons of her jacket, fumbling in her nervousness. Ryan's voice was soft, almost gentle, when he said, "Take your time. I'm right here, only if you want to." Her heart ached. She had spent years feeling invisible, unnoticed, unseen. At home, Daniel's love was steady but distant. With Ryan, it was immediate, responsive, almost alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. There was no force, no pressure, only presence, attention, and a strange, undeniable connection. Her body reacted before her mind could process it. a mixture of guilt, longing, and desire she couldn't name. She let the jacket fall from her shoulders. Ryan's hands were careful, steady, respectful. He didn't rush. He didn't look away from her face, reading her reactions, waiting for consent at every step. Each movement felt deliberate, like a silent question, each hesitation a chance for her to stop. Emily realized she was not only allowing it, she was seeking it, not just the touch, but the acknowledgement of her existence, her worth, in someone else's eyes. The office lights cast soft shadows around them, highlighting the curves and lines of the room. Was quiet, intimate, a private world built from shared moments of tension and stolen glances. Ryan's careful attention made Emily feel seen in a way she had forgotten she could feel. There was no urgency, only a shared vulnerability that neither of them could deny. Every gesture, every pause, every small touch was laden with unspoken emotion. She felt exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. All the walls she had built around herself cracked, letting in feelings she had buried deep inside. When the moment was over, silence hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Neither spoke immediately. Emily's chest rose and fell quickly, her mind spinning with guilt and exhilaration at the same time. She had crossed a line she knew could never be uncrossed. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her, a tempest of longing, regret, and a strange forbidden satisfaction. Ryan finally broke the silence. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said softly. His words were calm, careful, like a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. "Or your family." Emily nodded, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't want this to mean something," she whispered, "but it does." Her voice was small, raw, and trembling. She realized in that instant that desire could not exist without consequence, and that every choice had weight. She had chosen to step into a world of temptation, and now she had to live with the knowledge that things could never go back to the way they were. That night, she returned home, quiet and distant. Daniel was there, unaware, expecting a routine evening. Emily lay beside him, feeling the warmth of his body, but unable to connect. Guilt pressed into her chest, making every breath sharp. She could hear his steady heartbeat, the rhythm of a life that had been hers for so long, and yet she felt miles away. The intimacy she had shared with Ryan left a lingering ache, a reminder that longing and responsibility were often at war inside her. In the following days, Emily tried to reestablish order in her life. She maintained professional distance at work, polite and businesslike, avoiding the private corners and late hours that had drawn them together. Ryan, respectful and conscientious, began requesting transfers to other departments. Emily approved, quietly, unable to meet his eyes as they shared one last lingering glance. It was a moment full of unspoken emotion, a recognition of what had happened and what could never happen again. Back at home, Emily focused on her marriage with renewed effort. She spoke honestly with Daniel, confessing dissatisfaction not with him, but with the emptiness she had been carrying alone. They attended counseling sessions together, working through years of muted conversations and unspoken grievances. They learned to speak more openly, to express needs and frustrations before they festered. Small moments of connection returned. There were dinners where laughter came easily, small touches that weren't burdensome, and evenings where she could simply exist with him without feeling a void pressing on her heart. Yet, despite her efforts, Emily never fully erased the memory of that night. The office, the rain, Ryan's careful hands and attentive eyes, these were imprinted on her mind. Not in a way that tempted her again, but in a way that reminded her of what it felt like to be truly seen, truly noticed. It was a lesson in human vulnerability, in the hunger for connection that could not always be satisfied in ordinary life. Over time, the intensity of guilt softened, replaced by understanding. Emily recognized that infidelity was rarely about passion alone. It was about the absence of attention, the craving for acknowledgement, the human need to be recognized in one's entirety. The affair did not define her. It was a moment, a rupture in a life otherwise structured and predictable. That taught her something about desire, attention, and the fragility of human emotion. Ryan moved on with his career. He remained a memory, a private imprint on her consciousness. A reminder that human connection could be both profoundly tender and dangerously fleeting. Emily continued her life, investing in her marriage and her career. Carrying the quiet knowledge of what had happened, the mark of that night etched in the subtle corners of her heart. Years later, she would sometimes think of Ryan and that stormy evening, not with longing, not with regret, not with shame, but with clarity. She understood that human hearts sometimes reach for warmth where it is missing. That desire is rarely simple, and that decisions once made teach lessons that endure, far longer than any momentary pleasure. And Emily also understood that life, with its duties and commitments, required her to move forward, to build, to forgive herself, and to cherish the ordinary connections that sustain her. That night with Ryan became a memory she held with quiet, respect and acknowledgement of vulnerability and human need. A reminder that longing and love are complicated, fragile, and often unexpected. It was not an ending. It was a beginning of awareness, of emotional honesty, and of the deep, sometimes painful understanding that to be human is to want to be seen, to crave connection, and to navigate the choices that define a life. Storm had passed, leaving the city and her life calm, but leaving a lasting echo of desire, attention, and the irreversible truth of human emotion. Emily had crossed a line, but in doing so, she learned something essential about herself. That longing is real, that love can exist in many forms, and that sometimes the quiet moments of surrender teach more about the heart than a lifetime of careful control ever could. The memory remained not as temptation, not as guilt, but as a testament to the complexity of desire, the fragility of human connection, and the enduring power of being truly seen by another soul.